Police, that woman was shot and killed searching for her cheating husband. Now, we brought you this story. It's breaking news. This was yesterday morning. Police say 42-year-old Keiona Wilson was found shot inside a car. It was just outside the Madison Police Precinct. And
what would you do if the person you loved took their last breath because of a confrontation you didn't see coming? Keiona Wilson's life was tragically cut short on what should have been a normal day. But nothing about this case is normal. And the twists will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. And did you know, just 5 years ago, Keiona posted something that would leave you reeling? Here's what she wrote. On this day, 5 years ago, we started our journey to forever. She spoke of her love, of her dedication to her husband Amadeo Wilson, a love that would turn into a nightmare no one saw coming. Stick with me till the end, because trust me, you won't believe how this story unfolds, and believe me, there's more to this than meets the eye. Welcome to Crime Story Watch, where every story will keep you on the edge of your seat. These are not just cases, they're lives forever changed. Subscribe and hit the bell. Don't miss out on the truth waiting to be uncovered. This story takes us to Nashville, Tennessee, a city known for its vibrant music scene and southern charm. On the surface, it's a place where dreams are made, where country music legends are born and new artists rise to fame. But behind the allure, Nashville is also a city with its share of challenges. Nashville is a bustling metropolis, home to both the excitement of the city and the quieter suburban neighborhoods. While it thrives on the success stories of new music hits and tourism, it also faces the struggles of a large urban area, including rising crime rates. Violent crimes, domestic disturbances, and aggravated assaults have become more frequent over the years, with certain parts of the city seeing higher levels of tension. Keiona Wilson, 42, lived here with her husband, Amadeo Wilson, also 42, trying to balance family, love, and life in a city that never sleeps. They had been married for several years, and though their marriage wasn't perfect, they were doing what they could to build a life together. But on August 25, 2025, everything changed. The city of Nashville would be forever marked by the events of that fateful day. Keiona's story wasn't just one of betrayal. It was a story of confrontation, shock, and the deadly consequences of a marriage breaking apart. Nashville, for all its charm, became the backdrop for a tragic chain of events that no one could have seen coming. Keiona's day started like any other, but it wasn't long before she made a discovery that would change everything. It all began when Keiona noticed something unusual. Her husband's car was parked at a place it shouldn't have been, right behind a house she didn't recognize. The address didn't mean much to her at first, but something told her she needed to investigate. She decided to take a closer look, and that's when things began to unravel. Keiona wasn't the type to ignore her gut feelings. She used her spare key to move her husband's car to the front of the house, but the more she thought about it, the more unsettled she became. She knew something wasn't right. So, she did what anyone would do in her situation. She knocked on the door. The silence that followed made her even more uneasy. After a few moments, a voice came through the security speaker, and Keiona started asking questions. Her suspicions were only growing. What was her husband's car doing here? And who else was inside? Do you think Keiona had a right to be suspicious, or was she just overthinking? Let me know in the comments below. She didn't expect the confrontation that followed. What was supposed to be a simple exchange over a parked car turned into an argument. But things escalated fast. The woman who answered the door, Keiona Greer, was no stranger to tension, as she was allegedly the woman Keiona's husband had been seeing in secret. What started as a simple confrontation quickly spiraled into chaos. Keiona wasn't prepared for what happened next. Keiona's emotions were running high. After knocking on the door and getting no real answers, she pushed forward, demanding to know the truth. She wasn't ready for the reality that awaited her. The woman on the other side wasn't just a stranger. She was involved in a secret relationship with her husband. The tension between them was palpable, and the words exchanged were anything but civil. Then, without warning, the unimaginable happened. Keiona, the woman Keiona had come to confront, fired a shot through the storm door. The bullet missed Keiona, but it was clear that this situation had gone far beyond what anyone could have expected. Keiona was shaken, but she didn't back down. Instead, she did what many people in her shoes might have done. She pushed forward, determined to get answers, to confront the betrayal face to face. Can you imagine the shock, the fear? Keiona just wanted the truth, but what she got was a bullet aimed her way. How would you react in that situation? Keiona wasn't willing to walk away, and she gained entry to the house. What followed next would change everything. A physical altercation broke out between the two women. But this wasn't just a fight. This was a fight for control, for answers, for everything Keiona believed in. And then, it happened. Another shot rang out. The second bullet struck Keiona in the abdomen. In that moment, everything shifted. The woman who was once trying to hold on to her family, her life, was now fighting for her survival. But it wasn't just the bullet that hurt. It was the knowledge that the life she had worked so hard to build was crumbling before her eyes. Keiona managed to escape the chaos, but the worst was yet to come. Bleeding and disoriented, Keiona staggered out of the house. The pain was unbearable, but she was determined to make it out alive. Her mind raced as she drove, trying to put as much distance as she could between herself and the nightmare she had just endured. With each passing second, Keiona's strength was fading. The bullet wound in her abdomen was serious, but in that moment, her will to survive pushed her forward. She could barely hold on to the steering wheel, but she kept going. She had to make it to safety. She drove a short distance, barely able to see through the pain and the blood loss. Her vision blurred, but her survival instincts were still in control. She spotted the Madison police precinct up ahead and made a last, desperate attempt to reach it. Can you imagine the panic she must have felt, knowing she was running out of time? Her body was failing her, but her spirit refused to give up. Keiona flagged down an officer outside the precinct, her body now giving out from the trauma. The officer immediately called for backup, and she was rushed to Skyline Medical Center. But even with all the medical help, it was clear that the damage had been done. Keiona's last breath came as the clock ticked down. The woman who had been a mother, a wife, and a daughter was now gone. The life she fought so hard for, the family she believed in, was ripped away in an instant. At that moment, all of Nashville felt the weight of her loss. But what about the people who were supposed to protect her? What about the family that was torn apart in an instant? Keiona died from the gunshot wound, but the emotional and psychological scars would remain with everyone involved for the rest of their lives. Her family, her husband, and even the woman responsible for her death would have to carry the burden of that day. But did Keiona truly understand the consequences of her actions? Was it self-defense, or was it something far darker? Keiona's death was not just a tragedy. It was a turning point, and now the question remains, who is really responsible for what happened? The aftermath of Keiona's tragic death left Nashville reeling. The police began their investigation, but answers didn't come quickly. Keiona Greer, the woman who fired the fatal shot, was initially questioned, but as of now, no charges have been filed. Was it self-defense, or was there something darker at play? The facts of the case were murky, and as the investigation continued, the public's opinion began to sway. Some believed Keiona acted out of fear, defending herself from an enraged woman who had forced her way into the house. Others couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was involved, a deadly combination of jealousy, betrayal, and pent-up anger. Was this really a case of self-defense, or was Keiona just protecting her own interests? What would you think if you were the one making that decision? Keiona's family, who had already been through the pain of the confrontation, now faced an agonizing weight. They needed justice. But what exactly did justice look like in this case? Was Keiona justified in pulling the trigger, or did she take a life out of sheer rage and fear of being exposed? The question of motive loomed large, and it wasn't something that could be answered easily. Keiona's husband, Amadeo, was another central figure. His affair had sparked this confrontation, but did he ever expect it to spiral into such violence? Was he at fault for failing to protect his wife, or was this a situation no one could have seen coming? The legal system would have to decide what really happened, but the emotional toll on those left behind would never go away. Keiona's children, her family, and even the woman who pulled the trigger would all have to live with the consequences. This isn't just a case of who fired the shot. It's about everything that led to that moment. The lies, the secrets, and the shattered lives. Is anyone really innocent here? As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the pain from this event wasn't going to be easily healed. Was this a moment of pure self-defense, or a boiling point of emotions that should have never been reached? As we dig deeper into Keiona's story, we start to see something that was always there, hiding beneath the surface. Something we didn't notice until it was too late. When you look at a case like Keiona's, it's easy to focus on the immediate actions, the shots fired, the argument, the betrayal. But if you step back and look at the bigger picture, you start to realize that this tragedy wasn't just a moment of anger or self-defense. It was the culmination of years of emotional build-up, of lies, secrets, and unspoken fears. Keiona wasn't just reacting to the affair, she was reacting to the years of neglect and emotional distance that had crept into her relationship. Maybe she never saw it coming, but somewhere deep down she knew. She was fighting not just for her husband's loyalty, but for her own sense of self-worth, for the family she thought she had. And when she confronted Keiona, it wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything she had lost in that marriage. The love, the trust, the respect. But what about Keiona? She wasn't just some random woman who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was someone who had been living in the shadows of someone else's life, quietly knowing that what she had was stolen from someone else. And when Keiona showed up at her door, was it a case of defending her territory, or was it the final straw in a battle that had been building inside her for a long time? What would you do if you were Keiona, living with the guilt, knowing you were the one who pulled the trigger? Keiona, too, was a victim of her own emotions, feelings of fear, shame, and perhaps even anger at being hidden in the shadows. She wasn't just trying to protect herself, she was trying to protect her own fractured identity. She, too, was holding on to something that wasn't hers, and when everything collided that day, it became too much to bear. Was it desperation that drove her to pull the trigger, or was it the years of emotional chaos that pushed her to that breaking point? Amedeo, Keiona's husband, is another piece of the puzzle. He wasn't just the man at the center of this love triangle. He was the man who allowed this chaos to unfold by not facing the truth, by not coming clean. But why did he let it get this far? Was it guilt? Was it fear? Or was it simply the weight of living two lives that eventually collapsed under its own weight? Keiona's death didn't just expose the secrets of a marriage. It exposed the emotional fragility of everyone involved. It showed how unspoken feelings buried under the surface can lead to devastating consequences when they aren't addressed. The truth was there all along, hidden in the cracks of the relationships. Keiona's fight was never just about her husband's affair. It was about reclaiming a life she thought was hers. Do you think that if they had just been honest with each other, this would have happened? Or was there no way to avoid this tragic end? As the legal system grapples with the aftermath of Keiona's death, everyone involved must now reckon with the consequences of that fateful day. The investigation is still open, but the emotional scars will last far longer than any court ruling. Keiona, who fired the fatal shot, still faces the reality of her actions. But in her heart, does she truly believe it was self-defense, or is there an undeniable weight of guilt that will follow her forever? So what can we learn from this tragic story? It's a cautionary tale about the power of honesty, the fragility of relationships, and the devastating effects of hidden truths. Is there any real justice for Keiona? Or is this just another tragedy in a world full of unanswered questions? Keiona's story has unfolded in a way that no one could have predicted, but as we close this chapter, the questions still linger, and we need to confront them together. As the investigation continues, as the court case drags on, and as the lives of everyone involved are forever changed, we are left with more than just the tragedy of Keiona's death. We are left with the questions that no one can answer. Could this have been avoided? Was there any way to stop the chain of events that led to the fatal confrontation? What does justice look like when emotions, secrets, and fear have taken control? And most importantly, Can we learn anything from Keiona's story? Can we take this tragedy and use it to reflect on our own lives, our relationships, and our choices? What would you have done in Keiona's position? Would you have pushed forward, knowing the consequences, or would you have turned back, trying to save what was left of your family? We all have our own struggles, our own secrets, and our own fears. Keiona's story isn't just one of betrayal. It's a stark reminder of how unchecked emotions and unresolved issues can lead to devastating consequences. It's a wake-up call for anyone who thinks they can keep running from the truth, that eventually it will catch up with you. So what happens now? What do you think justice should look like in this case? And how can we as a society ensure that these kinds of tragedies don't keep happening? If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. You don't want to miss the deeper stories we'll uncover next. Hit that subscribe button or take a moment to reflect in the comments. Let us know. What would you have done if you were in Keiona's shoes? Would you have done anything differently? Share your thoughts because this is a conversation we need to have.